All right, so in the last video, we talked about using the concept of floats to break the normal flow. So the idea is I can take something that normally would be displayed on the left side and put it on the right side, even if it comes first in the code, okay? So in other words, I think I deleted it, but if I had this, so if I preview this, normally the strong tag should preview before this tag. Let's get rid of this. Oh, that's because it's inside of my columns thing to do that. It doesn't get affected. Okay. So normally what's going to happen is this is on the left side of, left to right. So the left side code is read before the right code, which is why this happens first and that happens second. But if I was to do this, let's take the strong tag and float it to the right. Well, that means that this is now, even though it's positioned in the code on the left, I can make it render or display in the browser on the right side. So if I go back, it puts it on the right side. In this case, the right side of the container that it's in. The container that this is in is the body, so it puts it on the right side of the page, okay? Or I could have done it where I took the EM tag, done the same thing. It's normally on the right side, but I could float it to the left. That's going to take this. Normally it would be over here. It's going to take that and put it over here. And so even though this comes first on the left side in the code, it's not rendering that way because I'm breaking the normal flow. Okay, so we did some layouts like that. Let's look at this layout here. So I have a couple of this page about jazz musicians and this is a picture of John Coltrane. And I would kind of like the John Coltrane text to kind of wrap around it. Okay, kind of like what we did with the Basquiat paintings and having the text wrap around the Basquiat painting. So what I'm going to do is I'll come in here. I'm just going to say, let's make a class called float left. And I'm just going to make it float to the left. And let's apply it to that image, which is here. All right, so what's going to happen is when you take something and you float it, in this case, I'm taking this and I'm floating it to the left side of the container. In this case, the container is the page. All of the content underneath it is going to move up to fill in the available space. So let's see what happens. So I think I saved it. Let's refresh. And then there you go. Okay. So, oops, shoot. Didn't do that. Here's the without the floating, here's with it. And if I want to, this is very tight. So, we could use box model properties and I could put like a little margin. So maybe margin right, I don't know, 15 pixels or something. Okay, something like that makes it look nice. All right, now there's a problem to this, which is, well, this is about John Coltrane, but this stuff is actually about different jazz artists. This is about Herbie Hancock, and that's actually a picture of Miles Davis. So it's like, I don't want those to wrap around because that doesn't make logical sense. So what I really want is I want this content here to move down underneath the picture of John Coltrane. Okay. So when you do this in, if I was doing this in, say, Microsoft Word or something, there's something called a break. Okay. And basically what it does is it stops you from wrapping around something. So here it's like, let's just say for the sake of argument, I wanted this text to move underneath, you could add in a break, section break. Although that's not great, but insert break, section break. Okay. Now in that case, I moved it to a new page, which isn't exactly what I want, but you get the idea that it would move it after this picture. Okay. So what can I do? Well, there's another CSS property we can use called clear. Clear, when applied to something that is wrapping around another item, cause it to stop wrapping. Okay. So in other words, I want this stuff to stop wrapping around this. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a class called clear. Okay. Clear, there's a property called clear. It takes basically 3 values. I should say it takes 4. You can clear left, you can clear right, you can clear both, or you can clear none. Okay. Clear left means you find the first available space on the left after the wrapped item or the floated item to move your content. Float right would do the same, but on the right side of the page. Clear both means there would have to be empty space on both the left and the right side. And then clear none removes any clears if there are any. Okay, so what I'm going to do is say clear left. And then I'm going to apply it to the area that I want it to stop wrapping. So what I wanted to stop wrapping is actually this part. So if I come into here, clear. Okay, see how it does that? All right, so I'm going to go, once again, I kind of want, I want this text of Miles Davis to wrap around the picture of Miles Davis. So what I'm going to do is go to here, and I'm going to just reuse my float. I don't need to make another one. You could if you want, but it just seems like we already got one. So why make another? I'm going to say float left. And what it does is like it did up here, where it takes this text and it floats around it. And that's great. But once again, I'm getting the problem of, well, I want this text to go underneath because this is a different artist. This is Miles Davis, and this text is about Thelonious Monk. I want to move that down. So once again, the way that we could do that is by applying a clear. So I already have a clear. The clear is on the left. So why don't we apply it there? This is Thelonious Monk. And let's use clear. And it'll put it underneath. Okay. All right. Last thing we're going to do is we're going to create a multi-column layout. Okay. All right. So we're going to be using floats and clears to actually make a decent kind of layout here. So you look at the file, there's a little preview where it's like a 2-column layout, a 1-column layout, a 1-column layout that's over here, and then a 1-column layout. So in this case, this is like half the page. Okay. All right. So this is our page normally. Let's just look at it. Okay. I added some background colors just to make it easy to see. So this is the A side, and I want this to be about half of the page, or about 400 pixels. So what I'm going to do is let's give that a width of 400 pixels. Okay. And I'm going to set this discover section also to a width of about 400 pixels. Okay. Now, if you look at the preview, you can see that it's like, well, this is supposed to be on the left, this is supposed to be on the right. So we can do that by applying floats. I'm going to take this A side and float it. That's going to take this and float it to the left, and then other content should move up. Now, it didn't quite work because once again, this is kind of like when we had that 2-column layout with Andy Warhol, where it's like, well, okay, this section does have a width, but it's still technically taking up this space because it's a block. So what I'm going to do is float it. When you float something, blocks stop acting like blocks. They become inline elements, okay? So I'm going to take this and float it to the right. It's going to float it to the right side. It's going to move up because it's content. And then I have that space there. Okay. All right, now this is probably how yours should look, where that gray section, the get proud section, is kind of like moving up in between. So what exactly happened? Well, this moved to the left. This moved to the right. And remember, when you float things, the content underneath fills up the available space. So the content kind of like dripped upwards and it filled in this empty space here. Okay, now that's not what I want. I want this content to be down here. So how can I fix that? Well, that would be a clear. I'm going to go to the proud section, which is the gray area. I'm going to say clear. And I don't want to just clear it on the left side. I want to, because if I just did left, well, the problem is that, you know, this is not going to clear it on the right side. See how there's like a little bit there. I actually want this to go a little bit underneath. So I actually want a clear both. Okay, so it moves it down, not just below here, but below this. Okay, so now I'm getting this is kind of like a 1-column. I'm going to take this police department and let's set that to 400 pixels. I want this over here. So that would be float right. Okay. Now what happened was, well, once again, when you float something, I floated this to the right, the content underneath moved up. The content in this case was the footer information. So it went from here and it moved up here, but that's not what I want. I want this, if you look at the layout, I want it to look like this. So how do I fix that? Well, we can clear it so that it moves past so it moves past this. So this is the footer, clear, both, save. Okay. So, you know, you can see I made a simple 2-column layout where some columns are, you know, some rows have 2 columns and some have 1 column. Okay. All right, I want you guys try that out. That was 4 and 5.